Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world right now. My name is Marcina Tilleman-Perez. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Global Blockchain Business Council, and it is really a pleasure to welcome you to the GBBC's Virtual Members Forum today. It's a forum that we host bi-weekly as an opportunity to showcase the innovative work of our members around the world. Today, we are joined by Anya Nova, Blockchain Development and Staking Operations Lead at Powerledger. Powerledger develops software solutions for the tracking, tracing, and trading of renewable energy. During today's forum, Anya will present on Powerledger's transition from proof of work to proof of stake, and how Powerledger is leveraging blockchain to chart a path towards a more sustainable future. Just briefly before we get into the meat of the presentation, I'd like to introduce Anya. Anya is the recipient of the 2019 Australian Blockchain Leader of the Year award. She has presented at premier blockchain and energy conferences, including Consensus in New York, Event Horizon in Berlin, and the World Energy Congress in Abu Dhabi. At Powerledger, Anya is driving the development of TraceX, a spot market for trading tokenized renewable energy certificates. We welcome your questions at any point during today's presentation, so please make use of the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will go through those questions at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, Anya, I'd like to pass things over to you. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you for the introduction, Marcina. I'm really excited to be here. This is my second or third time presenting to the GBBC members. And I'm actually really proud and excited because we get to showcase the work that the blockchain team has been doing since middle of last year. And it's also very timely because we've seen a big transition in the blockchain space. And in particular, the way I would characterize it is that blockchain has been this amazing innovation that everyone was super excited about. But really, if you look at the multinationals and large companies, to incorporate blockchain as part of the technology stack, it really needs to meet all the expectations of traditional software. So it needs to be highly reliable, fast, and sustainable. And those kind of three themes will go through my presentation today. And I'll also explain how at Powerledger we're actually developing something that's really fast, scalable, and sustainable. So for the presentation today, I'll just describe who we are. I think most people probably have heard of Powerledger. But if you haven't, I'll explain what the company does. The evolution of the Powerledger chain, we've been around since 2016, so a lot has happened. I'll touch on staking, which is probably the bit that most people are excited about, as well as security, and then finally sustainability. So Powerledger's technology is available in 12 countries across 5 continents. You see here a picture of our team. So the team has grown a lot since I've been with the company. Over the last 4 years, we've gone from, I think, 3 or 5 people in the office to close to 60 now. So that's really exciting, and it's great to have people all across the globe working for Powerledger. And really the flagship product is energy trading. So energy trading is helping people get a fair price for their excess renewable energy. And could be individuals, communities, businesses. We also have products for larger companies, such as distributors and energy operators and retailers. And I think one of the really exciting products is trading of environmental certificates. So I'm not going to read from this slide. There's quite a lot on that, and I'm hoping that anyone who is interested in understanding the application of blockchain technology for energy trading products can look at that in a bit more detail. But I'll just mention here that I think tokenization is really the future. And in 5 years' time, we'll see that everything in the world is tokenized. And why would that be? And it's because it's really the best application of this technology to challenges in supply chain, for example. So when you assign a token to whether it's a kilowatt of energy or a pair of sneakers, you enable integration of multiple actors across that supply chain, which provide things like provenance and ultimately really reduce the operating expenses associated with managing that supply chain. So particularly in regards with renewable energy certificates and carbon credits, we're hoping to bring about a very auditable and transparent trail and an understanding of where a particular energy credit or carbon credit has come from, with a timestamp, location stamp, the history of trading and ownership up to the point of retirement. And that essentially eliminates greenwashing, and it also helps substantiate the claims that companies are making in terms of their progress towards net zero targets. So blockchain evolution, as I mentioned, Powerledger has been around since 2016. At that time, as you imagine, there were not a lot of different blockchain options available. So we have actually started with a really basic blockchain called EcoChain that we have developed. It served its purpose and was used in a number of trials and proof of concept arrangements that we've had. It has outlived itself, and we have then developed a proof of authority blockchain that was based on Ethereum network. And the most exciting development is, of course, the blockchain that we have been working on since last year. And this is what I'm going to describe to you in the next few slides. So the thing to, I suppose, highlight here is that what we were really aiming for is something that is substantially faster than an Ethereum solution that doesn't have the issues with throughput or high fees or basically environmental issues associated with proof of work solutions. That we also wanted something that is extremely energy efficient. And after quite a bit of deliberation between the blockchain options that are available out there, we have landed on Solana. So Solana is a blockchain that has an incredible innovation within it, which is basically proof of history, and that orders the transactions. That means the validators or the nodes that are securing the chain don't quite have to be as energy basically heavy as proof of work validators or miners. So instead of having to come to a consensus on the order of transactions, they only have to come to a consensus on whether a particular transaction is actually valid. So if I sent a certain number of tokens from my wallet to your wallet, did I actually have those tokens in the first place? And as a result, at least theoretically, Solana is able to achieve 50,000 transactions per second while maintaining censorship resistance. And as part of that transition to proof of stake blockchains, will obviously be allowing proxy staking or delegated staking, and I'll touch on that a bit later. So other, well-known blockchains that are transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake right now is obviously Ethereum, and I think a lot of people are eagerly anticipating when that transition will take place. So as I mentioned, scalability is really important to us, and the main reason for that is because we work with energy communities and smart meter data. Smart meter data is traditionally have been available from every meter about once an hour, maybe once every half an hour. But what we're seeing is that the entire energy space is moving to real time. So we see meters being rolled out that can push data every 5 minutes, every minute, even every 5 seconds. Overall, I think that's a tremendous benefit to the energy sector. But that also means that any blockchain or any system that facilitates energy trading actually needs to be extremely scalable and very fast. So on par with centralized databases such as Visa, for example. And in terms of energy efficiency, what often is not realized is that the delays, for example, in Ethereum or in Bitcoin and processing transactions are actually architected. So there is on purpose, there is a delay to allow all the nodes and all the miners to come to a consensus on whether a particular transaction has occurred. So with proof of stake, you eliminate the need for that delay. And as a result, you're actually not requiring that intense mathematical computation to occur. So not only proof of stake is just a consensus that doesn't require basically a miner to pay a cost in order to process the transaction. The economic incentives there for the miner are to actually stake the existing tokens that they have in order to get the rewards for staking that compensate them for storage, compute. And also, if they don't perform their work as a validator, or for example, they're not available, then there is typically a penalty for not being a validator, performing the job of securing the blockchain. So in summary, Powerledger chain is based on Solana. So that doesn't mean that Powerledger has transitioned its operations onto the Solana mainnet. It means that we have used the Solana code base as the inspiration for the Powerledger chain. And even though we find that the really fast processing time, so the blocks and the transactions are typically finalized in under a second, while that's really fast, we're actually looking at ways to speed that up even further. And then being the proof of stake blockchain, we will be rolling out staking to the Powerledger community. And validators on the Powerledger chain will be verified. So we will be inviting professional validators, especially those that currently work on Solana or Solana-like chains. We also will be inviting our partners and customers and large energy companies to come in as a validator. So validators obviously need to have some basic expertise in verifying blockchains and maintaining the hardware. But the good news is that the Solana-based chains don't typically require a lot of the processing power. So forget about, the image of the data centers. It's really something that could be validated with a really good laptop. So we look forward to opening up that opportunity to multiple validators across the globe, whether they're using laptops or hardware nodes or even cloud validators. And I keep referring to the Powerledger chain as something that will come in the future, but the reality is that it's already live. The mainnet is live and stable, and we're validating the mainnet with just a small cluster of about 10 nodes right now. And we will be testing that for another few weeks, and just to make sure that absolutely, that it's absolutely ready basically for prime time. And in terms of staking, as I mentioned, staking will occur in two different ways. So first of all, by professional validators themselves. There will be a limit of 5 million power that they can stake, and that's to ensure that we have a really good decentralization, that if one node is down, the entire network can continue. We also will be facilitating delegated or proxy staking, meaning that individuals, and currently we have about 50,000 wallets that contain power tokens, that don't want to go through the process of setting up their own node. They can actually stake with a node of their choice, and the rewards that are accrued as a result of staking will be shared between the validator and the delegated staker. In order to do that, we've had to build quite interesting functionality. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to remind people who might not be familiar with a power token about where to get it, what it is. So the power token is the fuel of the Powerledger ecosystem. You need it to access the applications such as energy trading or renewable certificate trading applications. And the power token is publicly traded. We're listed on all the major exchanges, which is quite special. Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, Huobi. There is pools on DEXs as well. And the power token right now is trading at about 70 cents with a market cap of about 350 million. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website. Powerledger.io, or just go to CoinMarketCap and learn more about the token. The Power token has performed quite well. It's right now one of the top, if not the top traded energy token out there. So staking mechanism, I realize that, maybe not everyone is going to be interested in the technical aspects of staking, but I think it's still really important that we share that. And we continue publishing blog posts explaining our methodology and our thinking around the architecture of staking. So at your own time, please feel free to read through this slide. But what I will share is that because Power token is an ERC20 token that lives on Ethereum, but the Powerledger chain is Solana based, we've built a bridge that connects that Power token and enables it to be staked on the Solana side. This was really interesting. I haven't seen a bridge like that to my knowledge yet. I suppose when people hear bridges, they sometimes get confused with the term that was used earlier, interoperability, which is a more all-encompassing term, but bridge really is more about taking a token that lives on one chain and representing that token on the other chain. And the way we're doing that is we're actually locking up the Power token on an Ethereum smart contract that has already undergone testing and has successfully passed the audits. And then that contract basically interacts with the Java component on the back end that issues a corresponding amount of the tokens on the Powerledger chain side to the user's account. So the thing that I want to emphasize here is that we've done staking in as much of a decentralized way as possible. So the user at every point actually has to sign digitally the transactions, both on the Ethereum side and on the Powerledger chain side. So for Ethereum, for example, they would sign a transaction on MetaMask, and for the Powerledger chain side, they would sign a transaction on any of the Solana compatible wallets, for example, Phantom. So really, they are the ones that link the two accounts together, the Ethereum and the Powerledger chain side. And then the native Powerledger token is then staked, and any inflation that is accrued, because the validator has done a good job validating, securing the chain, is then deposited into the validator's account and then shared between the user, the proxy staker, and the validator. And then there is the way to withdraw that again through the bridge going back. If you have any questions on that, we will be publishing more information about the bridge, and we will be publishing a very detailed how-to video for delegated stakers. Even though we will be providing as much information as possible, I just want to emphasize that it's still crypto, so every user is responsible for having a basic understanding, basic knowledge and expertise in managing their wallets and managing their private keys. Because there is nothing that Powerledger will be able to do if a user misplaces their private keys and not able to withdraw their rewards. So onto the rewards, which is typically the most interesting part. We will be paying 37,000 Power tokens every epoch, which is about 2 or 2.5 days. Epoch is just a term that's used to measure that time interval in Solana chains. And the total pool of tokens will be available. It's about 5 million Power tokens per year. And we are committing to making them available for 4 years. So if you think about it, it's really quite good rewards. 37,000 Power at 70 cents. Currently, that's about, correct me if I'm wrong, about $30,000 every 2.5 days, shared between all the participating validated and stakers. So on the security side, I've mentioned bridges before. What's really special and interesting about bridges is that that's typically a vector of attack. You might have heard of the wormhole bridge that has happened a few months ago. We have looked at that very closely. We have an article published on that on our website, assessing, well, summarizing what we think has happened there and why we think we have the right things in place to avoid that from happening. But basically close to $600 million was stolen. And as you imagine, the best example I can think of bridges is that when you come into a casino, you're exchanging your dollars for casino tokens. So you actually bridging, you're representing your dollars with the token at the casino. While you're at the casino, if you had an ability to gain tokens, so for example, you've minted casino tokens, you didn't actually win them, you had a machine, you've created lots, and then you were leaving the casino, you were able to exchange that for a lot more money. So at that point, your sort of tokens that you created out of thin air, you would have been able to cash out for real dollars. So this is a very typical kind of attack that sometimes happens on bridges. And so that's something that we certainly have analyzed very closely and put in place a number of, I guess, defenses that we think protect us against any untoward activity with our bridges. And that's, we have no minting. So staking on the Powerledger chain happens with the native token of the chain. That means there is no minting functionality that an attacker can use to increase their balance. We are a permission chain, so not a public chain. So it's not possible for just anyone to push a transaction onto the chain. And the relay that approves the transaction on both chains is controlled by Powerledger. And what I mean by that is that Powerledger has an ability to view transactions and pause transactions that don't seem legitimate. But as I mentioned, the control of the funds still remain fully with the user because they have the private keys for both of their wallets. We have the withdrawal checks, which means that the contract actually looks at the amount that was deposited by the user plus the rewards that they have accrued and doesn't allow you to withdraw some amount that just in no way correlates to what you have deposited. And we also have withdrawal delays. So there is a 7-day delay between the funds being withdrawn on the Powerledger chain side and the ability to actually claim your stake and your rewards from the contract on the Ethereum side. On the sustainability front, I've mentioned that actually sustainability when it comes to blockchains really needs to be assessed in two different ways. So one is energy efficiency, and the other one is, well, how renewable is the energy that is being used? So energy efficiency, obviously there's a massive reduction in energy usage when you go from proof of work blockchains to proof of stake blockchains. But even proof of stake blockchains, they're not, it's not an apple to apple comparison because there is certain requirements associated with every chain. So Solana-based chains tend to have quite light hardware requirements and require fewer CPU cores. Which means that your energy consumption could be as much as just charging your laptop, for example. And then on the renewable side of things, it really comes down to the energy that is being used by Powerledger validators. So in some countries like Australia, for example, just being plugged into the grid means that you might already be 30% renewable. That still means that there is that 70% that needs to be accounted for, and whether it's through carbon credits or purchasing other offsets, we need to make sure that that energy is calculated, verified, and offset. So from the time of the public launch, we have a commitment to go carbon neutral. And that means we will be implementing a process by which we require validators to report on their energy usage. We will be working a very thorough process on assessing what that energy usage was and the percentage of that was renewable and was not. And we will be purchasing carbon offsets to make sure that the Powerledger chain is fully a carbon neutral chain. So I think that's a very exciting commitment that we're making. We're seeing more chains making that commitment, and we're hoping more chains are yet to follow. And if you'd like to learn more about Power Token staking or the new Powerledger chain, or if you have any questions about the technical aspects, or if you'd like to become a validator, please reach out at powerledger.io or just contact me directly. There's my contact details. And with that, I'd like to wrap up and thank you for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anya. That was really interesting. And we have received a few questions from the audience, and I encourage others to submit if things have come up. But perhaps we can begin by going through some of these. So David McCarville asks, how do you mitigate risks associated with potentially dynamic price moves for Solana? If the Solana price increases dramatically, does that impact your expenses at Powerledger?
That's a really good question. And so, of course, I think what he's referring to is that, lots of chains might claim that, oh, our transaction fees are so much lower than Ethereum. Come to our chain, it's a fraction of a second, a fraction of a cent versus, hundreds of dollars sometimes on Ethereum. But then what happens when that token becomes really successful and it's actually such that the transactions on that chain become really expensive? Well, the thing to remember about Powerledger is that we're not actually using the Solana mainnet. So we have forked the Solana's code base, and we have created our own chain with our own set of fees and our own rules for those fees. And we have an immense control then of the type of fees that we can facilitate within our chain. So the power token always remains the access point into the chain. But in terms of the transactions within the chain, it's not a concern of ours. So we are decoupled from the publicly traded Solana token.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And another question relates to the transition from proof of work to proof of stake. Obviously, this is a huge topic of debate in the blockchain world, and an attendee is curious about kind of the thought process behind that transition for Powerledger.
Well, I think proof of works chains, that's where it all started, right? There was a requirement to have a mechanism by which basically chains can be protected from DDoS attacks, for example. So if you didn't have any cost in sending a transaction through, you could be spamming a network with thousands of transactions. So then you had to implement some sort of an expense for validators and miners and participants in that network. And that expense typically was energy. So it's an expensive computation. By expensive, I mean it takes a lot of compute power. So then a lot of energy was used. And I think that methodology is still very valid and it still works really well. And I can see why the Bitcoin blockchain that has secured, what is it now, close to $500 billion or maybe more, is potentially going to stick with that mechanism forever. I don't think there is absolutely anything wrong with it if there is only a certain amount of transactions that's being expected. However, on the, if you talk about something, a blockchain that is required for example, mass adoption or used by enterprises, multinationals, you really can't afford to have slow transactions or blocks that take every 10 minutes. You need something super fast, half a second confirmation times. You can't have any delays. And so you need to come up with a new way to ensure that consensus occurs and that the network is not spammed. So I see proof of stake really as an evolution in the next step for blockchains that target particular applications. So for Powerledger, it's natural to be a proof of stake blockchain. Not only we require really fast transaction times, but it's one of our core values is energy efficiency and sustainability.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And it's always exciting for me to hear updates from Powerledger because I met Gemma back in 2016 when the company was really just getting off the ground. And I'm wondering if you can walk the listeners through some of the incredible live projects that you have on the ground, because I feel like that's always illuminating to understand the scope of your work at this point.
Yes, it's been really incredible, to be honest, because we started with just a few trials in early 2017. There was just a few small projects, maybe people in an apartment building selling excess solar to their neighbor, setting up their maximum buy price, minimum sell price, and then those transactions being accounted for on the Powerledger energy trading application. And then from that, basically growing to a number of really large customers in Europe, US, a lot in Asia and Thailand and Japan. And that was just the energy trading projects that we are very proud of. And then with that, the upcoming launch of TraceX, which is a trading of renewable energy certificates. So these two products operate somewhat differently, where with energy trading, we actually set up individual environments for every customer. And with the renewable energy and carbon trading, it's a marketplace that's basically you just log in, create your own account, and you able to start trading, whether you're an individual or a broker or a corporate client who's trying to buy the carbon credits in order to obligations under any sustainability goals that they have set for themselves. So I think just that scale of growth to where we're close to, I believe we're close to being in 9 or 10 different countries, and having multiple customers with potential ability to extend our presence with them in those countries, including India. I think that's super exciting. And we do publish all the updates on customers on our Telegram chat. So we have 2 chats there. We have the group chat, and I also really recommend people follow the Powerledger announcements chat, where every new contract customer or increase in scope with a particular customer will make an announcement on that.
Excellent. That's wonderful to know. And maybe we can send out details of that after the presentation. I'd also love to hear more about Powerledger's efforts to educate the public about actually using your products. I feel like it's a tremendous challenge to educate individuals about all of these opportunities that can seem quite new and foreign, and would love to hear about Powerledger's strategy as far as public education efforts are concerned.
That's a great question for our marketing manager, but I'll do my best in answering that. Well, I think we do quite a lot in terms of just speaking at events like this. Our head of business development is actually flying to US and Europe, and we'll be spending 2 months there, just speaking at, I think, a number of different events. And we're doing a lot of YouTube videos and podcast interviews. We publish articles. As I mentioned, we're really quite active on Twitter and Telegram. I think one of the things you've mentioned is that there is a bit of a challenge in explaining what the product actually does, because I think for the crypto community in particular, a lot of the individuals and crypto traders, they're more interested in what can I do with that token, right? Can I stake it? Can I loan it? What Web3 applications can I use it with? What kind of DeFi things can I do with it? When our enterprise customers are primarily interested in actual functionality of the applications that we have built on top of that. So we kind of walk in that, the 2 worlds and trying to communicate to both of those worlds. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge for us.
Absolutely. We received another question, which is, how do you see blockchain technology or the Power token evolving over the next 5 years? And I guess, what are you excited about?
Right. Okay. So I'll take that question as kind of in 2 parts. What can you do with Power token? And then what's going to happen with the Powerledger chain? So I'll tell you what my hopes are. My hope is that after a successful launch of the Powerledger chain and making staking available to the public, gradually we'd be able to open up the Powerledger chain and for third-party developers. I think that would be phenomenal if other people see the value of building additional applications on top of the Powerledger chain. And that's another reason why we think we need to be super scalable, developer-friendly, fast and green. In terms of the Power token, I really think that staking is something that the community has requested for a long time. It's a way for people to get involved directly and to get compensated for their efforts in securing the chain. And I'd be very curious to see if there are other, potential use cases for and utility for Power Token that will emerge in the future. So staking is almost kind of like that fundamental layer, and maybe there will be different ways that Power Token can be used either with tokenized carbon or in lending and borrowing, or I think there is a lot of options in this space that are very interesting.
Absolutely. We'll be excited to watch the progress as things move forward. Another question came in, which is, what is the typical timeline for clients to implement Powerledger's platform?
Well, that's probably more of a question for our business development team. So I was doing business development for about a year, and what I found is that there is a tremendous difference in that timeline. So one of the European customers that we were able to bring on, we brought on in, I believe it was under a month, which I think in the enterprise sales game is phenomenally fast. I find that with other customers, it's a timeline of, you might secure the customer, and it might take close to a year to actually onboard them, because the customer needs to also share their data and get familiar with the platform. So there is really a really wide range. There is not an average time.
Of course. And then Andres Diaz asks, do you see energy regulations as barriers? And how does community building, or how is community building done before implementation?
These are two separate questions. So one is on the regulation and one is on community building. And I'm not exactly sure what the community building question's about. I presume it's when we start operations in a new country, how might we go about ensuring that people are familiar that we have our product available? So I think regulation is typically, we don't really think that, and I'm speaking for myself here, that regulators necessarily have to jump at every innovation straight away. It's their job to be conservative. I think once regulators see that there is an overwhelming demand for a particular service, I think once you see that people are just no longer willing to accept not having control of their own energy, and not being able to switch retailers, for example, really quickly, not being able to determine how much their excess solar energy is being sold for. I think when people demand more, then technology solutions arise. And then when a number of technology solutions arise, that's when the regulators take note and they implement the appropriate changes. I'm hoping that that's I'm answering the right question there, and that's what that person had in mind.
Andreas, if there are additional questions, please feel free to submit them. We also have a question about how or if the pandemic has impacted your work over the last 2+ years.
I would say that I didn't find actually a massive impact. Well, there was a personal impact for our whole office, because we are based in Perth, Western Australia, which was, we were pretty limited in terms of travel opportunities. So we all got to know each other really well, because no one went anywhere for 2 years. But in terms of actual business growth and scale, I find that if anything, people were more willing to jump on a call, were more available, and excited to talk to another side of the world. So there was no issues, I think, getting calls and with potential customers in Europe or the States or in Asia. So I think that just became the new norm for doing business, and it didn't matter anymore whether your software provider or your blockchain company is based in right next door or is based in Australia.
Wonderful. And if someone wanted to get involved with Powerledger, with your team, are you hiring? Are there opportunities?
Well, the team is growing, so yes, there are opportunities. The blockchain team, we were only 2 people mid last year, and now we're 6 people. And I can tell you that if you're a good blockchain developer, if you're building things in Rust, if you understand how to maintain clusters, we definitely want to hear from you. It's a challenge to find excellent blockchain developers, people that have good work ethic and people you can trust, and people that fit the really beautiful culture that we have internally. So, I'm really excited to see my team every Monday. I feel like I've missed them over the weekend when I come in, so it's super special to have that. Actually, if you are interested to join, I would recommend reading an article that I published on our website on what makes a great blockchain developer. And it's, qualities that you expect from any good developer, but also qualities that you might go, oh, really? Such as being very security conscious, almost to a level of paranoia.
Very helpful. And are you able to share this presentation deck with attendees after the fact?
I don't see why not.
Okay, well, if that's the case, we can send it out. We just have a question on that. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anya. It's been such a pleasure to hear from you, to get an update on Powerledger and all of the incredible work that you're doing. And is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to thank you for your time. I know it's early in the States, and anyone who's decided to dial in and listen to this, or anyone who's listening to this video, I just want to thank you for your interest.
Well, thank you so much. And I'd also encourage anyone who's interested to go to Powerledger's website. We'll be circulating a copy of this recording to anyone who signed up for the presentation, and pushing it out through our social media channels as well. But thank you again, Anya. Such a pleasure. And happy Earth Day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.